Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Future of Storage, how to solve today's data problems and tomorrow's. Today's webinar is sponsored by Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. Speaking of Actual Tech Media, I am Keith Ward with that very organization, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for this especially timely presentation today. But before we get to today's great content, and I assure you it will be great, I need to cover some housekeeping items. First up, we want you to ask questions. Take advantage of these experts and drop them in the questions box in your webinar control panel. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. So if you can't hear something, can't see something, things are not working right, give your browser a couple of quick refreshes. Sometimes it takes more than one. And if that doesn't work, let us know and we'll hop on and try to help you out further. Okay, next up, take a look at the handout section, which is right next to that questions tab. There's a lot of great stuff there. And I'd especially like to call your attention to 3 handouts from Pure Storage today. They include an analyst report on agility and the future of the all-flash data center, a link to more information about the future of storage, and a PDF about 10 ways to uncomplicate your storage. That sounds good to me, so look at those now and download those free resources. Another link you'll find there in the handout section is one to our ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers like you that you can apply to join to participate in more in-depth events and other select opportunities. Another thing you'll find in that handout section is a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events. Check that out. And if you see something you like, well, go ahead and sign up. And last, at the end of this event today, we are going to be giving one of you a $250 Amazon gift card. A reminder that you do have to stick around for the entire live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of that prize drawing can be found also in that handout section if you should so desire. With that, folks, let's get to the content, all right? What do you say? That's what I want to do. I'm sure that's what you want to do. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. They are Kevin Rickson, Product Marketing Director with Pure Storage, and Don Porman, Technical Product Marketing Manager, also with Pure Storage. Kevin is going to be kicking this off for us. He is ready to go, so I am going to hand the mic over to him. Kevin, you are up, buddy.
All right, thanks, Keith. Hi, I'm Kevin Rickson with Pure Storage, and joining me today is Don Porman, also of Pure Storage. How you doing, Don?
Good, Kevin. How are you? Good to see you today.
I'm awesome, and it's lovely to be working with you again. So what we're going to be focusing in on today is the future of storage, and especially how you can solve your data storage problems, not only today, but well into the future. And, what we're going to really be talking about are the roadblocks and challenges that IT leaders are facing around data, especially as it relates to their infrastructure and what they're searching for, especially to stay on top of all the myriad of new pieces of technology and business challenges and everything that is coming IT's way these days. So that's what we're going to focus in on, especially some real world solutions that you can leverage that have been leveraged by thousands of your peers already to not only solve today's problems, but especially to be ready for tomorrow's. So let's dive into it. IT landscape, look, we've all seen a million different versions of these slides. Everyone's just trying to capture the complexity, shall we say. Frankly, having spoken to so many IT leaders, wherever they are within the management chain, insanity comes to mind at times. The challenges are just so myriad. We're dealing with infrastructures that have been built up over years. There may be mergers and acquisitions and, different challenges that have set up, obviously, remote data centers, working in the public cloud, et cetera. But, stepping back from that and just trying to take a larger, more macro view of the challenges that IT is facing these days, obviously just individual applications are changing. And then there's new technology and business needs that come in. I think probably one of the biggest ones right now, AI. It is so data dependent that there's no way anyone in IT can ignore the fact that AI is having a significant impact on their infrastructure and their resources in not just today's, AI projects, but especially what that's going to look like in the future and what the data demands on that are going to be. As I mentioned, it's not just our own data centers anymore. It's also the public cloud, and especially the hybrid approach, which is really where most organizations are winding and finding themselves these days, winding up, where it's going to take a blended approach. There's going to be some workloads and data that absolutely make sense to have up in the public cloud. There's other things that you're going to want to keep on-prem for a variety of reasons. It could be security, it could be latency issues, all sorts of different things. And speaking of latency, speed and, performance and developer efficiency. I mean, all these things come into play as things that are, basically just increasing the demands on you. At the same time, there are numerous roadblocks to being able to dive in completely on these different challenges. Probably, first and foremost, it's just the rigid infrastructure, especially around data storage. Look, we seem to have been able to, rise to the challenge around compute with virtualization, and networking these days feels so plug and play in comparison to our data storage infrastructures, which you can generally add capacity, but once you start looking at new features or performance or other things that are needed to adapt our data storage to these challenges over on the left-hand side of the slide, it just, you run into all these roadblocks, and we're going to dive into those and really take a look at why that's happening and how we can get around some of those challenges. But at the same time, there's other roadblocks too. Energy, cost, and usage. There are a lot of folks out there that I've spoken with who are being told by their power, suppliers and agencies that they're not going to be able to either expand or build a brand new data center just because of the tax that's already being put on the power grid. And this is especially true for these really large AI projects as well. We're all having issues with operational expertise. Obviously, IT is leaning into the age of the generalist as opposed to the specialist, but specialized knowledge is still needed, and finding and retaining, the right folks and making sure that they know how your systems work and how you want to be running things in IT. Those are real challenges. And then, of course, the perennial ones, time, money, and people. There's never enough of any of them. The bottom line to all this is what IT is looking for is agility, the ability to meet these challenges on the left and not be held back by all these roadblocks on the right. And, we need it, but it's very difficult to achieve. Don, do you have any thoughts you want to add on that?
Yeah, a ton of things. Actually, you and I talked about this on another webcast before, that these challenges are historical, right? These challenges showed up when the first tape drive was connected to a mainframe 60, 70 years ago, right? And it's amazing to think that this challenge has been around that long, but media management was a problem. Overtasking mainframes and being able to match the storage to it was a problem back then. And historically, if you look at how legacy providers have tried to adjust and cope with that since that time frame, they've taken what was a single purpose type of approach to storage, which was valid in the days of mainframes with tape. And they've tried to say, look, it doesn't matter if your workloads are changing or your agility needs are increasing. Take this technology that I designed 40 years ago and go ahead and drop it in, and trust me, it will be malleable to what you need it to do, which that seems counterintuitive when you think about it, right? I'm going to take something 40 years old and try and make it relevant today. I think
right.
With where we are at Pure, I think our entire intention was to design for to borrow from a bad metaphor, where the puck was going as opposed to where the puck was from storage. So everything that we've done has been to optimize the ability to navigate those roadblocks on the right, to include rigidity, right? A single purpose is nothing but rigid, and we are anything but that. So historically, we've been saying this for 60, 70 years. And for 40 years, legacy providers have been trying to provide relevancy in this with rigid solutions. And I think the time has come, especially like you said, with AI and other things, that a different approach is warranted.
Absolutely. And, let's dive into that a little bit more. I mean, we're talking about rigidity, but let's kind of work the problem a little bit to understand why it's manifesting that way. So, I know this is something you are talking about with customers all the time. I'll let you drive it right here, Don.
Yeah. So these three things, in all the time that I've been in enterprise storage, have always been the holy triumvirate of challenges that data center managers have to face, to include the storage managers, of course. The platform refreshes, the generation 1 goes to generation 3. What does that mean on the time, money, and people needed to be able to refresh your platform to keep it evolving to what your workloads are required to take from the storage itself? Migrations are a part of that as well. The idea of, well, 5 years ago, we bought a platform from this legacy vendor that was the hot one at the time. It's no longer relevant. It's time to move on to this next one because they don't even support the old one. What does that mean? Well, it's almost a repeat of the first thing, which is nothing but planning time, heavy lifting, moving from one to the other. And remember, this whole thing has to happen with minimal downtime and maximum efficiencies with legacy stuff. So it's very tough to square that circle. And even once you're on a platform, the upgrades themselves can be challenging as well. Some legacy vendor products out there actually represent a hybrid merger of two separate products that they've smashed together under one single interface, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those two independent pieces are also in sync as far as upgrades are concerned or the things that are needed to keep it healthy. So while on the surface, this legacy approach of being able to try and conform with agility, like you mentioned, Keith, they've tried to do it. It's really hasn't panned out. And I think as we see this continuing exponential growth of data, the management headaches that come with it, it's becoming a lot more obvious that a change needs to occur in how data management happens.
Right. And it leads, so it's not just those technical hurdles and the fact that these large are the refreshes or problematic upgrades happen. They have real impacts on the organization. Why don't you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, so these are the big three, right? Financial, we all know this, budgets rarely align with the data storage plan with unpredictable spend. Some of it may rest in the camp that you normally buy storage through a CapEx type of model, and you have to pre-buy and think about where you're going to grow over the next 5 years of the contract or something like that. But there's also the idea that there's no flexibility built into the CapEx model as well, that you have to over allocate money in storage, for instance, which takes away from other things that can be done in the IT data center. So we know that they rarely align, but what are the vendors doing about it in order to make that more successful? Managerial, the idea of migration and maintenance complexity inhibits progress. Like I said, there are legacy vendors out there who sell products that are really kind of a hybrid merger of two, that they double the amount of challenges that come into the ecosystem when they smash them together, which makes for managerial challenges because a lot of things now rely on the software APIs or management planes being very consistent and providing a way to autonomically manage your data center. And many of the older solutions don't have very successful implementations of things like that. And the technical thing, you talked about this before, Keith. We're in an age of generalists. I've been in storage since, 1998. That's really going to date me. But, since 1998, storage has always been considered kind of a black art reserved for very specific nerdy people who know how to bang away on a keyboard and deliver short stroke drives or IOPS or whatever. But with the way storage is being expected to perform, that kind of rigidity and that kind of specialty knowledge is kind of becoming irrelevant, and generalists have to take on the ability to provision and deliver storage to support workloads now. And it's one of the 9 hats that they wear too. That's the thing to remember, that while you may have a capable legacy product, it also sometimes requires you to make it 100% your full-time job, which we know is just improbable anymore. In every data center, every single manager wears 5 or 6 hats, which means being able to keep up on what's going on to the levels that were expected in the past is not something you can do now, which means we need to come up with a way to basically get the experience to be more aligned with how IT organizations operate as well. And that technical thing is huge. It really is, because once you can tamp down those technical challenges, I know we say this all the time, you really can start to think about your data center aligning with your business needs. You don't want to make storage the long pole in the tent.
Exactly. So, then to sum all these challenges up, what it really comes down to is these impediments to planning for the future. It would be great if every IT leader had a crystal ball, but the trouble is then everyone in the team would need to use it. So then the question would be, hey, who has my crystal ball? It's these rigid legacy data storage architectures that are holding IT organizations back. And that's mainly because, as Don said, they were never designed to grow and adapt. They can be expanded for capacity. Maybe there's one level of performance gain that you can get. Maybe a couple of extra features might be added on. But, as Don was saying, most of these are point products that are designed for very specific, workload and data set and feature set combinations. And so anytime you grow beyond those capabilities, guess what? It's time for yet another storage refresh, the dreaded forklift refresh, versus just being able to, expand and upgrade modularly so that the storage system can keep adapting to your needs over time. Also, as Don pointed out, there's built-in obsolescence. I mean, these are the business models for most of these legacy players was designed around storage refreshes being how they make their money. And that is actually baked into the business model, that you're going to be able to get 5, maybe if you really, really sweat things, 7 years of life out of a storage infrastructure, most of the time of which you're accumulating technical debt, because the better performance, the better features, all those things are going to require that storage refresh. And, so that just keeps accumulating more and more technical debt, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid in IT, because that just makes it harder and harder for us to tackle those new projects as they come up. So what is it? Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Sorry, I just got some feedback from the crowd there. Apparently I've called you Keith a couple of times instead of Kevin, because my 55-year-old brain gets confused with K words. So I apologize, Kevin, right? I did say Kevin. But I would use the excuse that I like to use to my kids. It's not that I can't remember. It's just that I don't care. So there you go. Right. That'll make you feel better with that one, right?
Well, and we're adding to the degree of difficulty today because our host is Keith, and frankly, I think all Kevins respond to Keith, and I bet most Keiths respond to Kevin at this point. So no harm, no foul, Don. No worries.
I owe you a beer.
So talking about skating to where the puck is going, to double down on Don's analogy earlier, I mean, really what IT is looking for, as we've said over and over, is agility. The ability to respond to the changes as they come in, or at least not be held back from being able to say yes, for years and years and years. One of the things that we've heard time and time again from the folks that we work with out there who are IT leaders is they're tired of all these point products. They would really rather have one data architecture across their data estate, that really not only simplifies things, but also means they don't need all these specialists who are, hey, great. When you mash two, or smash, I think is the word you used, on two products together to try and get added features, if it requires two different knowledge sets to be able to run that quote unquote new storage that you have, that's not really going to have a ton of benefit based on the amount of effort that's going into it. So simplified processes across your data estate is really, that's the thing that drives agility. And then especially that expandable, upgradable architecture that was designed to be adapted and changed over time, getting rid of that whole idea of planned obsolescence. I mean, that is the kind of thing. Why are people considering the public cloud? Because it doesn't require, it's not just the financial standpoint of things, of it obviates the need for a huge financial capital outlay at the beginning. It also means it grows. You can move things around. You can add new feature sets and capabilities, again, without having these roadblocks of, that system that we bought isn't designed to grow in that way. Wouldn't it be great if you can have that sort of flexibility, that manageability on-prem as well as in the cloud, so that you can say yes to more projects and yes to the demands that are coming up within IT? And that's exactly what we're doing here at Pure. As Dawn said, from the very beginning, we took a look at how we can design our storage so that it can adapt and grow with your needs over time. And what this delivers to those people who have moved to Pure Storage is, a whole raft of different benefits and outcomes. First of all, right off the top, that simplified architecture, the fact that you don't have to rebuy your storage every few years, significantly lowers the total cost of ownership. We actually, it's 50%. A lot of the time, we've seen up to 60% lower TCO, and that is against, whatever the best and brightest and most like it legacy storage or even other point product out there might be able to do. The savings are significant. It is due to the simplicity. It's also due to the power and space efficiency. Since we were born in the flash world, we have the highest efficiency compared to any other storage vendor. We're far more reliable, 10 to 30 times fewer service visits. The products never go obsolete, as we mentioned. It's this idea that you can use the same storage for all of your different workloads. So none of this tiering of storage. Hey, let's put the super fast stuff up here for our tier one, but we're still going to use, tape and disk for our backup and archival. Why not use flash that can adapt and change to all these different workloads and have the same user experience, the same system management capabilities across all those different tiers? And that results in significant time savings, freeing up the staff from the mundane tasks that are eating up all their time now, so that they can be working on the more value add capabilities and projects.
There's a great story to talk about as it relates to something you said earlier and what you just said. I love your idea of a data estate, right? Like, it's all your data is on an estate, like South Fork in Dallas or something like that. And yeah, that's a throwback. Anyway, the idea there is that it doesn't matter what the houses are on the estate. The data will have the appropriate house based on the intelligence of how the estate is managed, right? To play into the metaphor, for instance. And what we're aiming to do at Pure is to develop and build and deliver a data estate that, when new capabilities are expected of the storage, or new capabilities are brought in the form of a new workload, it just becomes an automatic assumption that the estate will be more than able to handle it. Now, will the endpoints change? Will there be scale out? Will there be scale up? Will there be object? Will there be file? Will there be block? Yes. If it's on the estate, yes. And there will be intelligence that will help the data itself match up to what the workload expectation is. It's not an entire redrafting of what your storage philosophy should be or your estate should be to just say, yeah, we're adding AI. No problem. We already had it there. We had the capability and we just folded it right in. That's what we're aiming for. And also to make it the least disruptive part of your data center as well. If you do bring in new workloads, we don't want you to have to over accentuate thinking about storage to make the problem, to work on the problems. We want to be the quiet ones who sit in the corner and just say, yes, we have no problems with that. So I think a well-run estate is really what we're aiming for.
Exactly. What we really strive for is storage that you don't have to worry about, that you can basically ignore in a sense, because it's not the problem child and it's not the thing that is uppermost on the minds, not only of the people who are tasked with managing it, but the executives as well. And that gives IT leaders the ability to say yes, as we said. And Don, as you say, it comes down to having a common platform that is designed to work across all the different kinds of data sets and workloads, whether you're looking at, large scale and you need a scale out type approach, or you're looking at more standard block and file and you want the more scale up approach. They're all built on the same platform and have the same UI and the same management capabilities, even if you want to take it into the cloud, and have the same type of interface and features and capabilities up in the public cloud, whether it be on, Azure or AWS or what have you. That is something that our platform at Pure can deliver. And then the way that you consume it should be flexible as well, whether it's, you're doing a traditional purchase, but then you have, and we'll get into what, Evergreen is like in a minute. But also if you want to consume it truly as a service, so it really mimics what the public cloud is like, and you don't have that initial investment or those things. Pure has you covered with the most complete and consistent storage platform, regardless of what you're looking to achieve. And so now we'll dive into a little bit about, I teased what Evergreen is. And this is kind of a few different things. First and foremost, what it is our architecture that we have developed over the years, basically from the very beginning. One of the key things that our co-founders heard from folks and the problems that they were having with storage was that rigidity that we talked about. The fact that, to upgrade your storage was very disruptive and oftentimes meant that you had to rebuy your storage because, thinking back 10 years ago or so, there wasn't really the, as a service that we have available as an option today. So, it starts with the actual storage architecture itself and designing into it the ability to upgrade over time, not just add more capacity, but add more performance, new features, have a very software oriented design, and one where, all the bells and whistles technologically are baked in so that no matter the type of upgrade you're looking for, it doesn't require the storage being taken offline. There's no outage windows or anything along those lines. There's no planned downtime or data migrations at all. So that's the first part of Evergreen. It's what we baked into the architecture from the very beginning, and it's throughout our entire storage platform so that you can upgrade without downtime and without the downside of it. But it also is continual improvement. So that means that, both from a hardware and software standpoint, you can continually upgrade your storage over time. So it actually gets better over time. And you can do this for 10 plus years because that's how we've designed it. And we also have, the customer proof points that they've been able to, basically modernize the storage that they purchased 10 plus years ago without ever having to take it offline, without ever having to rebuy it. So it's a proven architecture, but it's combined with how you want to consume your storage. As I said, from a traditional purchase where we have an evergreen subscription that, keeps your investment whole, protects it, and makes sure that you don't have to rebuy your storage, but you can keep upgrading it over time. Or if you want to go completely as a service with what we call our Evergreen One subscription, where the data can, and the equipment can reside in your data center, but you are consuming it as if it's the public cloud. In fact, we even pay your power and your space costs. So it really feels just like the public cloud. And the whole idea of this is then you're not worrying about your storage from the standpoint of, is it going to go obsolete? Am I over provisioning or overbuying? Not just from a financial resources perspective, but even things we talked about, the energy demands, and a lot of organizations today have ESG programs where they are trying to make sure that they're being as sustainable as possible. And all of this winds up being, some of the most sustainable storage you can have, especially if you're not over provisioning and overbuying in the beginning, because again, that magic crystal ball doesn't really exist. So what have a lot of IT leaders done in the past? Well, I think I might need, this much. Let's add 20, 30, 40% to it just in case we grow. And I'm going to buy all that now, and I'm going to power that now, even if I wind up not using it in the future. Our as a service Evergreen One completely gets rid of that. In fact, even if you purchase, it's so simple and cost effective to upgrade the capacity over time. There's no reason to do all that over provisioning that folks used to do in the past.
And that speaks to something that we've talked about before on other tech talks, that this idea of overbuying and looking in whose ever crystal ball you have in your hand at the time to figure out what your growth pattern is going to look at, you're never going to be accurate. And by over provisioning, you're really taking funding away from other things that the data center can be doing. So we're not saying everybody has to run to OpEx or do storage as a service, but when you look at your storage plan, you should allow for more flexibility in the model that traditionally wasn't there from a financial perspective. And I know Evergreen is not solely a financial offering. It's a synthetic between technology and financial, but the financial flexibility it brings greatly complements our ability to grow as needed over time. Like you said, for 10 plus years, one of the greatest examples is a customer that upgraded from one model of flash array to the other with non-disruptive upgrades, meaning we changed the controllers in flight while the storage was online and servicing workloads, and it was for Epic. So if any of you are in the medical field, Epic has to be on all the time because it's patient management. My wife is a nurse, she uses McKesson, but Epic is another one of those that if it's offline, everybody goes to paper records and it triples their time having to re-enter all of the stuff. So we've been able to move from one model to the other without Epic needing to be brought down. That's another part of this whole Evergreen experience. So I think saying it's a synthetic blend of financial and technical makes a lot more sense than just thinking, oh, it's just capacity on demand like an OpEx lease. No, it's not. It's something more than that.
Exactly. And as proof of that, exactly what you were talking about, Don, is the fact that we've been able to deliver, 6 nines of availability at Pure to our customers, and that's inclusive of upgrades. And a lot of times, you'll hear other vendors and they'll throw around 4 nines, 5 nines, 6 nines of availability. If you look in the fine print, they're almost always saying, based on unplanned, uptime and not planned downtime. And the idea here is that they all carve out the time that is needed to take the systems offline, to do the nights and weekends and the 6 months planning and all that for the upgrades. And that just never enters into the experience of folks who are using Pure Storage and the platform. And we've done this, multiple thousands of times. We're actually well over 10,000 arrays that have been upgraded with, new controllers that basically make, a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, array work exactly like the newest one that just came off the production line. And that's just not anything that any other storage vendor can claim. Everyone's talking about non-disruptive upgrades and upgradability. The truth of the matter is, as we talked about, the evergreen architecture that we baked in from the very beginning is the only one that's been able to consistently deliver this. And, I think the final number here is really the strongest. 97% of all Pure Storage arrays that have ever been sold, and we've been in business for well over 10 years, are still in service today. And we don't mean like in some backwater in the back of the data center and it's just still got a heartbeat. The reason that they're still in service is that they've been upgraded to work just like brand new arrays, as we said. And it's so simple, both from a technology standpoint, a no downtime standpoint, and a financial standpoint, that our customers are incented to do that. And so they do it, and they upgrade their arrays, and they learn to depend on it because they never really need to think about it. The simplicity, the upgradability, all result in that IT agility that IT leaders are so in need of, and finding it hard to find from the legacy and even some of the newer point solution storage providers out there. So, as further proof of Pure being able to deliver for our customers, we have validation from the experts, in this case, Gartner, with their Magic Quadrant. We've been named a leader in the, that upper right quadrant for 10 consecutive years. And, again, that's just based on both our ability to deliver for our customers, as well as the innovation and vision that we bring to the marketplace. The reason that any other storage vendor is talking about non-disruptive upgrades and things along those lines is a direct result of the change that Pure Storage has brought to data centers worldwide, and the fact that that is now an expectation. The planned obsolescence that was the norm no longer has to be. IT leaders have been freed from those shackles, and it is represented both in terms of our market share as well as how people are viewing Pure Storage. And it's not just our technology, as Don talked about. It's the evergreen business model. If you think about it, it goes hand in glove with the technology that we have, but also this relentless customer experience focus that we have. So we talked about the TCO savings. You're going to see anywhere from 50%, maybe up to like 60%. We've been a leader in technology, as we talked about, with the Gartner and within the Magic Quadrant for 10 plus years. But we also have the highest net promoter score. And if you're not sure what that is, that's different from customer satisfaction. It actually means you're asked a simple question: would you recommend Pure to your peers? And so many customers who use Pure would recommend it to their peers. This is actually a scale of -100 to 100. So 81, we're about 2 to 3 times any of the other storage vendors on that. And it's a real good testament to the fact that when people make the switch to Pure, not only do they never regret it, they realize that this is something that can take their entire data estate, can manage it for them, and they recommend that to their to their fellow IT leaders.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up related to the NPS score, because this slide is great because it shows a blend of probably what goes through a decision maker's head, right? So is the technology valid? Can it be purchased and aligned with how my budgets work? And what is it like once I have this in my data center? And what I've said all along with Pure since I've been here is that we're in a market that's saturated, right? There are no really new use cases that are going to revolutionize the storage market anytime soon. The chips have already landed, as it were, but that doesn't mean that the chips that are on the board are always going to be the relevant ones. That there might be a company like Pure come along and make some changes and scoop up some of those chips. And I think what it really comes down to in that middle with the customer experience is the idea that, sure, we sell storage. We sell data estate storage, whether it's a physical array, whether it's software services, whether it's evergreen, tying it all together. Sure, that's what you buy, but we're really selling trust. We're selling somebody to trust us that this vision that we have, this platform that we've designed, is the way you should be thinking as you move into the next 10 years of data storage. And those numbers that surround that customer experience, to me, they make perfect sense for somebody who wants to go where the puck is going instead. Evergreen's another great example. I was talking to somebody last year at Accelerate, and we were talking about archive storage on flash, and some of those arrays that we sell start at 4 petabytes. And their whole angle was, well, I don't have 4 petabytes that I can archive. First off, well, you can just get more data if you want and throw it on there. Or the other idea was, use something like Evergreen One. Just pay for 500 terabytes. Sure, the array may be sitting there and could take 4 petabytes, but you're only going to pay for 500 terabytes, and then grow into it as you need to. That's the flexibility that comes with Evergreen. It complements the hardware with the software and makes the software just as important in the financial model as the hardware itself.
Exactly. And it's all of it combined that really focuses in on, the best possible customer experience. So where do you go to learn more and get agile yourself? You can use the QR code that's on the screen there. It's out at our purestorage.com, and you can try different is another quick mnemonic for that link. But we have lots of different resources for you there, including a copy of the Gartner Magic Quadrant that you can download for yourself. But there's several assets that we're going to make sure that you get as well that help you understand when we're talking about storage agility, what does that really mean, and kind of goes into a little more detail than we could here in in a brief conversation. But with that, I'd like to open it up to some questions that we got while we were going through, and just looking at a couple of them here. It looks like one is, why does AI pose a challenge to data storage? Yeah, we touched on this real briefly in the beginning. I think, a quick way to think of it is AI is so data centric. And one of the ways that we've evolved data storage, and we've talked about this, the point workloads and solutions, we tend to have set up our data storage to work for, a particular application or a particular database or a particular, archival or backup need. And what AI wants is all of your data pulled together so it can start creating those models. That's what you're, as you're looking towards your AI projects, and the AI developers who are building these models are looking for is the data that they can use to then start building out the models. And so having one data estate gets you a lot closer to being able to pool all that data together and break down the walls and the barriers. And the fact is that AI just generates a lot more data. It needs data in, it's going to put out a lot of data out. And so it just becomes a much more data centric view of things because of the totality of it all. So having a common platform is going to help you a lot more in your AI projects going forward, and having the adaptability and the ability to grow and expand and upgrade over time is going to mean that, again, you're not going to have artificial barriers presented to your AI projects in the future.
And I have a really good real world example that I can paint a picture of that backs up what you just said. I'm doing some work right now in the EDA space. So chip manufacturing, everybody's manufacturing their own chips, from Apple to Facebook to Amazon. Everybody's now getting in the chip manufacturing business like Intel was doing for the longest time. And there is a manufacturing process they go through in order to model it out, engineer it, design it, get all the transistors aligned that need to be there, and then do what they call a tape out, which is send it to manufacturing. Well, part of their testing stuff as far as workload processing and everything occurs used to evolve. It used to sit in a silo, which meant every chip that came down through to the design, that test was all it was exposed to. And now what they've done is they've started to say, look, we've got all these test results from past designs. Let's roll it all into a large language model and then use AI to go through it and learn if there are other ways that we could make a chip more efficient. You know, would it be better to line up 6 transistors in a line instead of, 3 pairs of 2 kind of thing? That's how granular they're getting with AI. And to be able to do that, you need a data state that you can just say, well, yeah, we can bring that in, and the data's already there. So it's all in the same ecosystem. I don't even have to think about it, bringing it in and looking for data for the large language model, because it was already there. And like I said, our capabilities at the endpoint, whether it's scale up or scale out or object or file or blah, it doesn't matter. The estate can cover it all. And that's the kind of thought process we want to enable IT leaders to have is, yeah, it's just in there. It'll be fine. So that EDA thing, I thought, when I learned about that last week, was a really neat example. Because otherwise I thought generative AI was just for goofy pictures and chat prompts and smart to-do lists, right? All about a name stuff.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's being leveraged in a lot of different ways for efficiencies, both inside organizations as well as, customer facing, tools and different things like that. Absolutely. Okay. I think we got time for one more quick one. So I picked the simplest one. It says, is this just for on-premise storage? What about the cloud? Okay. Got it. So yes, no, I think I touched on very, very briefly, but we do have the same implementation that you would have within a physical array that's in your data center, available for the major public cloud providers, AWS and Azure and Google Cloud. And that does allow, as I said, the exact same feature set, the same management can be used on it. The efficiency is there as well. So a lot of the data reduction capabilities that we have can be applied. So it actually can help save you money on your public cloud bill. But most importantly, what that means is you then get to decide, how to implement your hybrid cloud, what goes on-prem, what goes in the public cloud. You can move it back and forth very easily. And, it's all the same, platform. It's all the same management interface, etc. So it greatly simplifies your public cloud experience when you're using Pure up there as well.
Great.
Okay, with that, I think we're pretty much at time, so I am going to throw it back to Keith. Thank you, Dawn, for all of your insights here today. Thank you all for joining us. Again, please use the QR code in the link and find out more about how Pure Storage can get you agile and you could throw away the crystal ball. Thanks very much.
And thank you very much, Kevin and Don. What a great presentation. I loved it. And judging from the reactions of the attendees, they loved it too. Great stuff. Really appreciate your time today. I also wanted to point out that any questions that did not get answered today, and you folks asked a ton of them, you were really interested in this, but all those that didn't get answered will be followed up on by Pure Storage. So don't have any worries about that. And so now we come closer to the end of our event today. But before we wrap up, we do have one more piece of business, and that's some money we need to give away. $250 Amazon gift card. As I mentioned at the top, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible. And the winner of the card for this event is Matthew Kuzer from Georgia. Congratulations to you, Matthew. We will be in touch to get you your card ASAP. And with that, folks, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Pure Storage for making this event possible. Thanks to you, the attendees, for being here with us, for your enthusiasm and your great questions. You folks were on point today with all of that stuff. And that's it, folks. You can go back to the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next event. This concludes today's event. I will talk to you soon, folks.